Okay, home stretch. Um, Notice, by the way, that Dennis Hopper says, "You're like me," and then he hurts Isabella Rossellini, and Kyle MacLachlan punches him in the face. Please notice that punching someone in the face is what Frank would do, not really what Jeffrey would do. So Jeffrey is becoming like Frank. And after he's been beat up and he wakes up, he goes to his room and he cries, and you can see that he's thinking about some things. Is he crying because he's been beat up? No. You see what he's thinking about. David Lynch's camera sort of shows you what's going on in Kyle MacLachlan's mind, just like he showed you his father's warped face and the candle and Dennis Hopper roaring earlier in the scene during that kind of dream sequence. Um, Kyle MacLachlan is crying. It's nothing to do with the fact that he got beat up. That's not why he's crying. What he's thinking about when he's crying is that he punched Isabella Rossellini. He's confronting the fact that maybe he is like Frank. Maybe he is just maybe the sexuality is violent and destructive, and that he has in him the same kind of motivations that Frank has that makes him like Frank. Uh, and then, complicatedly, the next thing you see is he's on the lawn watering the plants, just like his dad did. Um, this is again a symbol that he's entered into sort of the adult world, that he's no longer the child visiting his father. He's now taken his father's place. He's entered the world of kind of adults and adult sexuality. Um, I also like, before he takes Laura Dern to the dance, the Detective Williams says, "Oh, I'm just giving him a little fatherly advice." Like, that's the third father in the movie now, right? Detective Williams and Jeffrey's dad in the hospital and Frank are kind of father figures. They're like fathers. Um, okay. The next part of the movie I want to talk about is actually one of my favorite lines in the whole movie. Kyle MacLachlan gets chased after the party, and he thinks it's Frank, and it turns out to be Laura Dern's boyfriend, Mike. Mike feels like he's in a totally different movie. He's like, "You stole my girl. I'm gonna beat you up," and he wants to like get in a fist fight. And in the background, you see the completely naked Isabella Rossellini, wounded, stumbling into the frame. If you can see her early, it's really disturbing, because there's this scene happening in the front where the Kyle MacLachlan's going to get in a fight with Mike, and here comes Isabella Rossellini kind of wandering in, bruised and fully naked. Um, it's an incredibly disturbing scene, but my favorite part of the whole movie is in the scene, because when Mike sees her, he's like, "I'm gonna beat you up," and he looks over and he's like, "Hey, is that your mom?" And he's like ready to fight him, and then Kyle MacLachlan rushes over to take care of Isabella Rossellini, and then Mike is like, "I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I'm sorry," and his friend's like, "I thought you were gonna beat him up." It's amazing because that guy has had the same experience that Kyle MacLachlan has had, which is he thought he wanted to, he was acting a role where he was like, "Hey, is that your mom?" Like, no, that's Isabella Rossellini, and this situation is so much more. You can't just do a "is that your mom" joke. That's what a child would do. This is a totally nude, bruised, assaulted woman stumbling, needing help. That's more complicated than Mike is ready to deal with, and it's why he backs up into, I'm sorry, man, I'm sorry." Because that's that little journey from "is that your mom" to "I'm sorry." Is very similar to Kyle MacLachlan's journey from "gee whiz, neato" to "do I want to hit women because it gives me sexual pleasure?" It's like he's entered into a world that he's not quite ready for. And Isabella Rossellini and Laura Dern have been in two separate worlds in this movie. And what happens when Isabella Rossellini shows up on the lawn, totally naked, is that the worlds collide. And that's why it feels like such a big deal, because David Lynch has kept these characters apart for so long. And now they come together in the sort of the same zone. And it's extremely disturbing. Um, uh, Also, Isabella Rossellini keeps saying, "You put your disease in me." A lot of my students want to know what disease, which is a perfectly reasonable question to ask. Is it, is it AIDS? This is really before AIDS. Gonorrhea, syphilis, there's all kinds of sexually transmitted disease. But she's not talking about a disease. The disease he's put in her is his sperm. It's sex itself. Sex is the disease. It's the thing that once you find out about it, you can't go back to. Like, children don't know about sex. And when adults find out, and then you can't go back to being a kid. You won't look the same way at the world once you enter into sort of adult sexuality. It's a border crossing, and you can't go back. Um, and that the disease is sex itself. That's one of the crucial things that this movie is about. Notice, by the way, that Dennis Hopper said, a love letter for me is a bullet from a fucking gun. Well, when the police raid to attack his whole setup, the song playing is about love letters. A love letter straight. I can't sing the song, but it's a love letter from my heart is the name of the song. Um, yeah. Okay. And so let's wrap up. Let's wrap this movie up. Um, Dennis Hopper. Notice, by the way, that when Dennis Hopper's coming after Kyle MacLachlan in Dorothy Allen's apartment at the end, the connection between sex and violence is again hit because he's going to kill Kyle MacLachlan. He's got the gas. He wraps the blue velvet around the gun. The ritual of sexual assault and the ritual of killing are for him the same. There's like this weird crossover, sex and violence. Does he want to hit her? Does he not want to hit her? Does she like being hit? Does she not like being hit? Um, and when Dennis Hopper is finally killed, it's the camera angle when he gets the bullet in the head. Dennis Hopper's looking at us. He's looking at Kyle MacLachlan and he's looking at us. Kyle MacLachlan is in the closet looking but not being looked at, just like we're in a movie theater looking and not being looked at. He joins with Laura Dern and you get that same white light knowledge. The first knowledge he got in the movie was the entrance into adult sexuality, which is extremely complicated. The second set of knowledge he's gotten is he's going to be with Laura Dern. This is his girl. And we had that same, just like the camera went into an ear, like into, and again, the idea that you saw that shot when the camera goes into the ear, it's like going into somebody's head, which is why you end up with, it's less realistic and more how Kyle MacLachlan feels. He feels like the situation is very confusing. And so things happen that don't make any sense, like what is the gas and what happened to his dad? Because it's sort of in the ear is into psychic space, into your head. And these symbols return, right? We're back at the closet at the end of the movie that he was in at the beginning of the movie. There's an ear at the end of the movie and the beginning of the movie, and the camera goes into the ear at the beginning and out of the ear at the end. And then the Robin shows up. And this is one of the most complicated moments in the whole movie. The Robin shows up, and it's like it's Laura Dern's symbol for love in the world. But the Robin has a bug in its mouth, and the bugs were the symbol at the beginning of the movie of the horrible, fucked up things going on in the world. It feels like a kind of balance. That the bugs were evil and the robins were good, and the last thing we see in the movie is a robin eating a bug. And then weirdly, Aunt Barbara's like, is he eating a bug? I could never eat a bug. And then she eats something that looks very much like a fucking bug, Aunt Barbara. I think it's probably just a chocolate piece or something. But it's the idea that, like, there's been evil and good in the world, and this movie is not about defeating the evil. It's about kind of balancing, about the bug and the bird, about the good and the evil. And Kyle MacLachlan has learned to accept this in the world, and it provides a weird kind of balance. And then again, we get the shots of um, the fence and the flowers and the firemen. But when we saw them at first, it was like happy, wholesome America. When you see them at the end, I don't know what you think about that song and those people, because you've seen the fucked upness going on underneath. And it's up to you to decide if you want to just be like, yay, these are happy images, peace has returned to the world, or if it's, there's that surface again, I now know what's going on under the surface and I will never be able to unsee it. And of course, the very final image in the movie is of the singing, I will always see Blue Velvet through my tears. And it's happy because Isabella Rossellini has been reunited with her child. But the last words of the movie are, I will always see Blue Velvet through my tears. Like sadness is sort of the tears is the last word of the movie. And so again, it's up to you to decide how happy this is. Isabella Rossellini feels like she might be fucked up for the rest of her life, or maybe she's going to be a good mom and she's going to have all of this figured out and she'll process it like Kyle MacLachlan has learned about the bug and the bird, that they're both sort of part of it. It's a complex movie that really leaves it up to you to make decisions. And David Lynch it's a difficult film. But David Lynch is doing something that nobody else is doing, and he's doing it in a way that nobody else is doing it. And I hope you got something out of it. That is the end of Unit 1, the Blue Velvet. You've seen 2001: A Space Odyssey, and you have seen all the movies in the Blue Velvet unit. So you finished the prologue and Unit 1. I will see you next time as we begin Unit 2, The Lost Highway unit. Please go to the discussion board and talk about this stuff. Reference my video, reference the movie, talk about what I've said, discuss some things. I want to hear your opinions and thoughts on this stuff. All right. Thanks for joining me.